The gravel crunched beneath his polished shoes as Ethan stepped out of his sleek black car. The countryside air was crisp, filled with the scent of hay and rain-soaked soil. It had been 7 long years since he had last seen her. 7 years since he had walked away, thinking his ambition was worth more than love. Now, standing in front of the weathered wooden gate of the farmhouse, he wasn't sure if he was ready to face the woman he'd left behind. The farmhouse looked the same, yet different. Once neglected and struggling, it now looked vibrant. The white paint glistened in the sunlight, the garden was bursting with wildflowers, and a few horses grazed in the field beyond. He remembered when Claire had begged him to stay, to build a life here, to choose simplicity over the chaos of money and business. But he hadn't listened. He had been too consumed by dreams of skyscrapers and success. Ethan took a deep breath and knocked on the door. The sound echoed through the quiet morning. For a moment, there was no answer. Then, the door creaked open, and there she was. Claire. Her hair was shorter now, a soft chestnut brown, tied loosely behind her head. She wore a faded blue shirt and jeans covered in soil. Her eyes, those same hazel eyes that once looked at him with endless warmth, now held something else, calmness, maybe even strength. She froze when she saw him. "Ethan," she whispered, disbelief flashing across her face. He managed a faint smile. "Hey, Claire, it's been a long time." Her gaze flickered over him, his tailored suit, his expensive watch, his carefully combed hair. He looked like a man who still belonged in the city, not on a dusty farm road. 7 years, she said finally, her voice steady. "What brings you here now?" He hesitated. "I was passing through. Thought I'd check in. See how you're doing." She didn't respond right away, just stepped aside. "Come in, I guess." Inside, the farmhouse smelled of fresh bread and coffee. The walls were lined with photographs, some old, some new. He noticed one with Claire standing beside an older woman, her late mother, perhaps. Then another, of her smiling next to a young boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The boy had bright blue eyes and dark brown hair. Ethan stopped for a moment, his chest tightening as something unspoken stirred within him. "You've done well with this place," he said softly, glancing around. Claire poured him a cup of coffee and handed it over, her expression unreadable. "It took a while, but we managed." "We?" he asked before he could stop himself. Her lips twitched into a faint smile. "Yes, we. Me and my son." The words hit him harder than he expected. "Your son?" She looked at him, her eyes softening for the first time. "Yes, my son." Ethan's mind raced. He thought about the timing, the photo, the boy's face. "Claire, how old is he?" She hesitated. 7. He felt his breath catch. The room seemed to blur for a moment, the air too thick to breathe. 7, he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "Claire, is he?" She cut him off gently. "His name is Noah." He ran a trembling hand through his hair. "Claire, please, just tell me. Is he mine?" There was a long silence. Only the ticking of an old clock filled the space between them. Claire set down her coffee cup and looked at him with tears glimmering in her eyes. "Yes, Ethan, he's yours." He felt the world tilt. 7 years ago, he had walked away to chase wealth, to build empires and close deals. He had thought he could leave her behind and start fresh. But he hadn't just left her. He had left his own son without even knowing it. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice cracked, a mix of anger and heartbreak. Claire sighed, her voice trembling. "You were gone, Ethan. You'd made it clear. You didn't want this life. I tried to reach out once, but you'd changed your number, your address. You were in newspapers, traveling around the world. You didn't want anything to do with me, or the farm. I figured you wouldn't want a child either." He looked at her, guilt weighing heavily on his chest. "I didn't know, Claire. If I had." She shook her head. "You weren't ready back then. And honestly, I don't know if you're ready now." Before he could respond, a voice came from the hallway. "Mom, who's that?" Ethan turned. A small boy stood there, holding a toy car in one hand. He had Ethan's same piercing blue eyes. The sight of him nearly brought Ethan to his knees. "Noah," Claire said softly, "this is an old friend." The boy walked closer, studying Ethan curiously. "You look like me," he said innocently. Ethan smiled weakly, his throat tight. "Maybe I do." Claire quickly changed the subject, leading Noah outside to feed the animals. Ethan followed, watching them. The boy laughed as he fed a horse, his joy pure and unguarded. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something break inside him, something he hadn't even realized was missing. Later, when Noah ran off to play, Ethan turned to Claire. "I want to be in his life," he said firmly. "I missed too much already." Claire looked away, her expression torn. "It's not that simple, Ethan. You can't just appear after 7 years and expect everything to fall into place." "I know," he said quietly. "But I'll do whatever it takes. I've made mistakes, Claire. I chased success and lost everything that truly mattered. Please, just give me a chance to make it right." She studied him for a long moment. "People don't change overnight, Ethan." "Maybe not overnight," he said. "But I've had 7 years to realize what I lost." The wind rustled through the trees. She finally sighed. "We'll see. Noah deserves stability. If you really mean it, you'll prove it with time." He nodded. "I will." The days that followed were a blur of awkward beginnings and quiet healing. Ethan extended his stay, helping around the farm, fixing the fence, even learning to milk the cows. Noah grew comfortable around him, asking questions about the city, about cars and planes, about everything. Each question felt like a small doorway opening between them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Claire stood on the porch watching Noah chase fireflies. The air was golden, and for a moment, everything felt like the way it was always meant to be. "He's amazing," Ethan whispered. Claire nodded. "He has your curiosity, and your stubbornness." He smiled faintly. "I wish I'd been here to see him grow." She turned to him. "You still can be. But I won't let him get hurt, Ethan." "Not again." He met her gaze. "You have my word." Weeks passed, and Ethan began to understand the quiet beauty of this life. The sound of the rain on the roof, the laughter echoing through the fields, the peace that came from simply being present. For years, he had measured his worth in money and success. Now, he found something richer, a family he never knew he had, and a woman he never stopped loving. One evening, after dinner, Noah handed Ethan a small, hand-drawn picture. It was of the 3 of them standing in front of the farmhouse. Beneath it, in messy handwriting, the boy had written, "My family." Ethan's throat tightened. "Did you draw this?" he asked. Noah nodded proudly. "Mom says families don't have to be perfect. They just have to love each other." Ethan looked at Claire, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. In that moment, he realized forgiveness was possible, not just from her, but from himself. Months later, Ethan sold one of his companies and invested the money into expanding the farm. Together, he and Claire turned it into a thriving community hub, part orchard, part animal sanctuary. He spent his days working with his hands, and his evenings helping Noah with his homework. Slowly, the pain of the past began to fade, replaced by something stronger and more real. One night, as they stood watching the stars, Claire said softly, "You really did change." He smiled, taking her hand. "I finally learned what matters." She squeezed his hand gently. "Then maybe, we can start over." He looked at her, the woman he had once lost, and the son who had given him a second chance at life. The night sky shimmered above them, endless and full of promise. Ethan whispered, "I'd like that." And in the quiet of that small farmhouse, where love had once been broken, it began to bloom again, slowly, honestly, beautifully. He had come to see what she was hiding. But what she had truly hidden all these years wasn't anger or resentment. It was love, quiet, patient, and waiting for him to finally come home.